Okay, everybody, welcome back. It's story time. Kids, sit down and welcome to Blues Clues. No, does anybody remember that show? I shouldn't, but I may revise that. But anyhow, so I told you I was going to start a series about kind of looking at the Bible from Neville's perspective, but not just Neville's, because Neville was trained by Abdullah, who was also a Jewish trained mystic, Kabbalah mystic, right? And so you have to understand that there are layers upon layers in the Hebrew language and the Greek language, meaning you could go and look up a word and then end up with 7 different meanings depending upon the context. Okay, so this is very, very key to understanding this, all right? So even Neville said in some of his lectures, he's like, listen, there's unnumbered, right, interpretations that I'm not going to be able to reach you with in looking at the Bible. So because a lot of people love to protect certain interpretations over others, okay? So when I share this is my own understanding of Neville and his work as I've studied it, and also through the Hebrew and through my training in the Kabbalah as well. So, and a lot of people are really messed up by the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot and Lot's wife. Now, the most popular understanding of at least Lot's wife outside of the story is that it turns into salt, right? And so what is salt? It's a preservative, and this is Neville's interpretation, which I think is great and right, is essentially the salt is where you're turning back and you're looking back on the old state. And every time you do that, right, every time you rehearse the old self, you're preserving that old self that doesn't have what you want. Okay, so if you have doubts and you take the doubt as true and you sit in the doubt and you marinate in the doubt, that's being Lot's wife, right? So then you're being the very thing that you don't want to be by actually focusing on, yeah, but what if this happened? Yeah, but what if she said that? What if he did that? Yeah, but the adjuster said this and the mortgage guy said this and the bank said that. So what you're doing is you're constantly preserving the old state, which is, I don't have what I want. Right now, keep in mind, if you followed me for more than 5 minutes, you know that when I talk about getting what you want, it's becoming the person who has what they want. It's not getting what you want, right? Because we manifest who we are, not what we want, right? That's very, very key. And I'm sure other people will say the same thing. And so again, back to the story. So again, a city in Scripture, at least in the esoteric sense, is a state. Right? So when you're moving from city to city, when Jesus, the imagination, is moving from city to city, he is moving from state to state. Okay? And remember, what is a state, according to Neville? It's a body of beliefs we accept to and consent as true and repeat and rehearse and practice and sometimes don't even want to change because it's way too scary, right? And so keep in mind, so Sodom and Gomorrah are just states. These are states, okay? And it could even be a metaphor for the state of self-destruction, like where we're just in a state of like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm making bad decisions. Now, and then there's a weird part about angels and kind of like these fallen angels and so on and so forth, okay? Now, angels and demons, for that matter, are simply just messengers, and they could be embodiments of doubt, they could be embodiments of success, they could be whatever it is. Now, remember, we're interpreting all of these things, okay? Me in here, we're constantly in a state of interpretation, right? So you've just interpreted, why did I move, right? You've interpreted, why am I doing what I'm doing? So we're always and constantly interpreting. But we'll have messengers that will reinforce what we already believe and accept as true. Now, these messengers could be in here, right, as thoughts and ideas, and then birthing them, right, is the experience of them. So the daughters that are possibly getting asked for, which is like, obviously, if we read it literally, it sounds like the angels are asking to rape them, right, essentially. This is not what's happening, because remember, this is a psychological metaphor, all right? This is not anything that's happening on this world or in this plane, right? This is all about here, the mental world, okay? So daughters could also be very well understood, and Neville talks about this as well, as your own creation, okay? So then that means your own creation, your own experience of things, your own manifestations are fused with ideas. Okay, because that idea of sex, even rape or whatever it is, whether it's forced or not, is this idea of union. Okay, so there is a forced union, right, between your concept of yourself and your manifestations, okay? And the daughter is representative, or the daughters that are asked for are representative of you and your experiences, right? And so if you have fear, right, which the fallen angel could represent, right? And then you go out and you live out your fear, right? And you experience it, that's the fusion. That's the fallen angel and the daughter, right? Being forced into a relationship. Okay, are you with me? So then let me give you another example, because I know that there's a lot of touchiness around this story. And I know that there's dealing with some graphic issues that are unacceptable in any world for that matter, right? But what I want to say is that when we think about Sodom and Gomorrah as a psychological story, it takes on very different meaning. So, right, and again, so when a state is being destroyed, it means you're leaving it. You're leaving it alone. It's metaphor, right? So when it says God is coming down and the fires from heaven and all this kind of stuff, the fires are purification. So that means you are going through a change. It's a mental change of self. You're changing the self-concept, right? Everybody leaves, and in their leaving, though, Lot's wife, right? And Lot's wife is the feminine, right? And so she turns back. And so that means there's going to be a temptation in the outer self to interpret your events as not happening, or to interpret what just happened as a negative thing. So when you're changing, by the way, when you're going through, I'm no longer this person who lacks, but I'm this person who has, right? There's some changes. There's changes within yourself. You might even go through a period of mourning, right? And you might want to look back. And by the way, mourning is actually not a bad thing. When you're trying to let go of your former self, it's okay to mourn. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be like, oh man, this feels like a lot, right? That's what's going on. But you keep going, but you keep pursuing your becoming. You don't look back. You don't sit there and become friends and fuse with your doubts, right? And so there's actually more to this story, and I might go into this even more and break down the actual Hebrew as well. But I wanted to give a quick overview. I know some people had really been messed up by the story itself, because of course, if you take it literally, it sounds really like a jacked up story. And if you take it literally, it is, right? But this is what's going on. The Bible is speaking to the inner self. So people look at it as a historical book, it's going to screw you up. Right? And so again, keep in mind that I'm going to be doing these as a series, and we're going to go through these together, and we're going to go through them and use them as tips, okay, and strategies. So again, what's the tip here? What's the story? Well, I mean, if you use Lot's wife, right, as your own outer self, as an example of, you're going to be tempted, right, to look and interpret the world around you as not happening, or because there's a time element that you're measuring, right? And don't forget to check out my video on time, because that will hopefully help you with this. But like basically, when you are trying to understand what's going on and you're trying to figure out what is happening and you're constantly looking back, right? That's Lot's wife. So how do you not look back? Well, you become more. So this is called a characteristic chain, okay? What you're doing is you want to sit down, you want to script, you want to write it down, you want to draw, whatever it is. You want to choose 5 to 10 characteristics of this new person who has what you want. What would they do? How would they act in the world? How would they talk? How would they feel? How would they touch things? How would they interact with reality? In here first, then out there, right? And so what you want to do is you want to build a characteristic change. You want to give yourself the new characteristics of this other person, right? But from inside to outside. And so you want to build that. And that is how you actually begin overcoming the temptation to constantly look back. Like, yeah, but that happened before. Yeah, but he did that 2 years ago, right? And so you want to give all of that up and move forward. And that's really the heart and the crux of Sodom and Gomorrah, is you don't want to be like Lot's wife. You want to be like Lot and his kids. They're running, right? And they're hightailing towards their becoming of this person and this thing who has what they want, because you deserve it. And that's really what that's about as well. So again, more to this story, but I hope this gives you a surface level reading of really what's going on and how to also understand scripture from a more esoteric Kabbalah-esque Hebrew Neville kind of lens. So much love to you guys all. Be safe in the world.